Hello, I'm Charles Coves, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of The Charles Coves Show, episode 81. In this week's episode, I aim to provoke you to raise your awareness about how you decide anything. I ask you 12 questions that are guaranteed to raise your awareness about how you decide. You might be surprised by the answers you give to yourself. I hope so. Useful questions can help us to break existing patterns of thinking. When you change your pattern of thinking, you change your behaviour. You change your life. If, of course, you want to change your life. Stick around. I'm confident this will be of great value to you. This weekly show is founded on the formula SA plus P equals S, self-awareness plus passion equals success. Since 1993, when I left my successful legal career to become Australasia's passion provocateur, I have provoked, educated, inspired audiences and individuals to discover and pursue their passion, to raise their self-awareness, to understand what real success means. I've done this through keynote speeches at conferences, at workshops, at team building programs, one-on-one executive coaching, and through my books, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance. I urge you to embrace the idea of discovering your passion as a wonderful way for you to live an amazing, fulfilling, contributing life. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous principle, the unexamined life is not worth living. So I aim to provoke you to raise your awareness of who you are and why you're here. You can see I'm wearing my red jacket. Red is the colour of passion, so that when you see red out in your day-to-day living, you think about, gosh, am I living my passion? What am I passionate about? Each week I explore one big idea. One idea because too many ideas that are thrown to us lead us to not making a decision about anything. One idea I hope can help you on your journey take the next step in a slightly different direction. And what's amazing in life is if you have a 1 or 2 or 3 degree shift in your trajectory and direction, then in a year's time, it'll be amazing what a different place you will end up being. Each week I share some practical resources to help reinforce and to build on the one big idea. The lyrics of a song, a book, a quote, a spiritual tip, a health tip, and some humour. After all, life is too serious to be taken seriously. No, it's not. Life is not meant to be taken seriously. That's why I'm the chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy. Humour, laughter, it's such a great pattern interrupt. And after all, this show is about pattern interrupt. So immersing yourself in comedy is often a very useful thing to do. And becoming aware of why something makes you laugh is an interesting self-awareness technique. This show is not politically correct. I have no desire to be politically correct. I speak my truth. I urge you to speak your truth. I'm free to speak my truth. You are free to speak your truth. I'm all in favour of useful addictions, like my addiction to great coffee. Thank you for the feedback from many of you about your awareness of my addiction to coffee and Julie's addiction to coffee. I love the stuff. This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. Your spirit, your soul, your heart is a crucial element of your being. The human spirit is remarkable in its capabilities, in its potential. Passion helps you to unleash your spirit because passion is a source of unlimited energy from your spirit, your soul, your heart, that enables you to produce extraordinary results. And it's extraordinary because you have above ordinary levels of energy, and it's energy that drives your productivity. So, what's happened this week before we get into the big idea? Well, in Victoria, we have the corruption inquiry into the activities of certain members of the Victorian government in relation to branch stacking of political parties. And there's all sorts of information coming out showing endemic corruption at deep levels of the party. In New South Wales, as I mentioned last week, there's a new premier because the previous premier claims to have left because of a corruption inquiry, and indeed he's leaving Parliament. There are all sorts of rumours running around that she was also paid, and connections to her were paid large amounts of money by big pharmaceutical companies in relation to jabbing issues. The corruption in political circles continues, and we will never know all of the corruption. All we can do is to hope to discover bits of corruption. Also, during the week, there's big debates in Australia and around the world about reducing carbon emissions, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and the term of net zero by 2050. Whilst there are energy shortages in certain countries who are committed to the renewable process, this whole game around net zero, I urge you to take an interest in it. And net zero is not zero. It's a different concept, because if greenhouse gas emissions, if they indeed impact, if human greenhouse gas emissions impact on the climate, which I have studied deeply and do not consider to be the case based on much scientific reading, but if they do, then net zero means all we have to do is to change other ways in which we can increase carbon sequestration, and Australia particularly can rely on its natural resources and be net zero, indeed be a carbon sink. I have a whole game plan around that. But be aware that major investors around the world are putting pressure on large Australian companies to commit to the net zero game. Now, these large investors, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street Corporation, the interlocking relationship of these biggest investors on the planet, they are part of the globalist agenda that I've discussed with you previously. These players behind these big investors are driving the globalist agenda. Be aware of that. This is not about saving our planet. This is about creating a one world government, the new world order, the great reset. Don't get sucked in by the nonsense, oh, we have to save the planet and therefore we have to sacrifice all of this, whilst in the meantime, control and power is concentrated ever more deeply and narrowly in favour of the globalists driving this globalist agenda. Be aware. If you'd like more information about this, let me know on my email, which of course you all know. During the week, I attended an excellent presentation by Senator Amanda Stoker, by Zoom, of course, because I'm in the house arrest capital of the world, Melbourne. And Amanda spoke well about Section 92 of the Australian Constitution, which guarantees that intercourse between the states of Australia will be absolutely free. And you would be horrified about the interventionist activities of the High Court of Australia in interpreting down those words, absolutely free. If you would like a copy of that speech, well worth reading, I'm happy to email it to you. Just ask. I've also presented to various groups on Zoom on various topics, including the foam meeting on Friday night about freedom of assembly. So if any of you would like invitations to these fortnightly, probably going to weekly meetings, then please let us know as well. And in the meantime, I got a year older during the week and I maintained my exercise regime. Now, I want to let you know that whilst I train nearly every single day, when I'm unwell, I don't train, or I train very easily, because when you are unwell, you have to give your body the ability to recover. You have to learn how to let your body recover. And so there's no point just pushing through. Much, much healthier for you to listen to your body, which I do. And if I'm unwell, I don't train. A slightly unwell body puts extra strain on the heart. And after 59 years of serious exercise, this process works. Honor your body, honor its ability to heal itself, and that's a bonus health tip, if you like. Listen to your body. There is no point being relentless about it, forcing yourself through, and then knocking out your long-term ability to perform sustainably. So for today's big idea, before we do, I want to remind you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking the button below. Subscribe to the podcast if you're listening to it. Go and visit our websites, covest.com for corporate programs, for executive coaching, for public programs, and charlescovest.com for the self-awareness and passion quest. Subscribe to Passion Points to Ponder. My books are available on both websites, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance. And all feedback, of course, is welcome at any time. Any suggestions about topics you would like me to consider, I'm happy to have your feedback. So, today's big idea: how do you decide? How do you decide anything? You make decisions, but the basis on which you make them, are they conscious or unconscious? Raising your awareness about how you decide can help you make better decisions, will help you make better decisions on a day-by-day basis moving forward. If you're not happy with what's happening in your life, then change the basis on which you make your decisions. Questions are wonderful tools to raise your awareness about how you presently make your decisions, of how you decide. Questions can interrupt our pattern of thinking, our normal patterns, our unconscious patterns, our subconscious patterns, our lifetime developed patterns. Someone can ask questions, and I hope that's me today, that help you rethink the basis on which you make your decisions. So here's 12 important, crucial questions in my view. And of course, this whole show is about my view. This is not gospel. This is not absolute. I could ask you 24 questions, but I think 12 is good, because 12 comes from the 12 degrees of freedom. Very interesting concept, the 12 degrees of freedom. So, question 1. What topics have you decided to remain ignorant about? When somebody says you are ignorant, how do you feel about that? I'm ignorant about many things. Amazingly ignorant. I'm willing to acknowledge it. I make decisions to remain ignorant about certain things. For example, I am happy to remain ignorant about the rules of netball, about the rules of field hockey, about how to grow orchids, about how to graft fruit trees. I'm happy to remain ignorant about those. What are you happy to remain ignorant about? Question 2. If you have to make a decision and it's an area in which you are ignorant and you've chosen to remain ignorant, on what basis will you make your decision? Whose advice Will you seek, or will you just toss a coin? Reminds me of a famous book, The Dice Man by Luke Reinhardt. Toss a coin, toss a die. One of 6 choices. Question 3. In which areas, in which topics do you wish to be well informed? And I suggest to you that the more topics you choose to be interested in comprehensively and broadly, the better decisions you will make. But of course, there is a time limitation. There is a passion limitation here. You might choose, I don't want to be informed well about anything. Good. That's a choice. You are free to make that choice. What do you want to be well informed about? Question 4. What are your current sources of information? And on what basis did you decide that they are your current sources of information? Do you consciously choose these sources of information, or do you just let information randomly hit you, particularly from the mainstream media? Question 5. On what basis do you choose to end friendships that you have or previously had? Well, on what basis did you choose to end them? Question 6. What do you do when one of your friends chooses to end the friendship with you? I'm giving you a little time to think about these questions. Question 7. What role do your values play in your decision making? Do they play any role? In fact, if you don't know what your values are clearly, then they play very little role. They play an unconscious role. But I suggest to you that knowing your values and then deciding consistently with those values is a crucial element in terms of your successful life. Question 8. How important to you is your need to remain comfortable? How comfortable are you right now? Just like I'm comfortable having my coffee. How important is your need to remain comfortable? Are you trapped in your comfort zone? Are you wrapped up in your cocoon of comfort and you don't want anything to disturb that comfort? Question 9. How did you decide to get jabbed with these injections or to remain unjabbed? What factors did you take into account? Did you just decide to get jabbed to go along with the crowd? Or, as numerous people are asking me, I'm being pressured because others are saying, take one for the team? On what basis have you conceded or refused to concede? What are the factors you took into account and are taking into account? Question 10. Why do you choose to help others if you do? What are the factors that you take into account? How much help have you given to others in the past? How much help are you willing to give others in the future? We are in a brave new world, as Aldous Huxley called it. This is a very challenging time on the planet, Question 11, a very important number for Julie. Are you willing to ask for help? Is this an option for you? Or do you decide, I will never ask for help. I want to be totally self-sufficient? As Thomas Mann famously wrote in his book, no man is an island. Question 12, final question. What would you do next if you lost everything except your health and your relationships? All your assets taken away. What would you do? What life would you then create? Would you give up? I hope these questions provoke you to rethink the basis on which you make decisions. They are important questions. They are difficult questions. They are worthy of your contemplation, in my view. I've thought deeply about them. I share many of the results of that contemplation in this show each week. And I've shared these thoughts and the development of these thoughts over the 28 years that I've been helping people and organizations in terms of human capability, human performance, expanding our capability, expanding our awareness, expanding our understanding of what each one of us is capable of doing. So, tools to help you deal with these questions. Song. John Lennon, excellent philosopher. Watching the wheels. I'm just sitting here watching the wheels go round and round. I really love to watch them roll. No longer riding on the merry-go-round. I just had to let it go. How about that? I just had to let it go. People say I'm lazy, dreaming my life away. Well, they give me all kinds of advice designed to enlighten me. When I tell them that I'm doing fine watching shadows on the wall, don't you miss the big time, boy. You're no longer on the ball. John Lennon made that decision to let it all go. What decisions do you need to make that are consistent with who you want to be? My book this week is by Edward de Bono, Parallel Thinking, because many decisions that we make are not black and white decisions. And in Parallel Thinking, I found this a long time ago. Edward de Bono helps you to think that there's not just one answer to a particular question. There are answers that can go along in parallel. That's why it's called parallel thinking. I commend it to you. A whole new way of thinking about thinking. My quote for you, because I asked you the question about being comfortable. Charles Lindbergh, the famous aviator, he said, life without risks is not worth living. This is an interesting provocative thought for you. Life without risks is not worth living. Obviously, I agree with that proposition. My spiritual tip for you is to thank somebody from your past. I had a good friend of mine die 10 days ago, Noel Harmon, great man. He and I were friends for 41 years, more than half of my life. He was 89, fought the good fight against leukemia, and his dear wife Susie, who I've also known from much the same time, and who also had a role to play in the education of my son Matthew. She rang me to say that Noel sadly passed and there was no opportunity to farewell him because of the house arrest situation in Melbourne. So I thank Noel for the part that he played in my life. And so who's someone way back in your past that you have not thanked, or you might have thanked, but you ring them up and thank them from the past and say, hey, thanks for what you did for me. My health tip, a specific one. I've already given you a health tip earlier. How much vitamin C do you have each day, and how much do you think you should have? I suggest you start thinking in the realms of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 milligrams a day. That's what I have, 4,000 milligrams a day. Now, my spot of humour for you, also to help you decide about your way of thinking, you know. A little bird in the northern hemisphere was flying south for the winter before he had his cup of coffee. It was so cold, the bird froze and fell to the ground in a large field. While it was lying there, a cow came by and dropped some dung on it, shat on it. As the frozen bird lay there in the pile of cow dung, it began to realise how warm it was. The dung was actually thawing him out. He lay there all warm and happy and soon began to sing for joy. A passing cat heard the bird singing and came to investigate. Following the sound, the cat discovered the bird under the pile of cow dung and promptly dug him out and ate him up. The moral of this story, number 1, not everyone who drops shit on you is your enemy. Number 2, not everyone who gets you out of the shit is your friend. And number 3, and when you're in deep shit, keep your mouth shut. Woohoo! Now I've got another cute story that I think is very apposite in terms of the good life and what this show is all about, and the aware life. And there's little Nelson sitting beside his granddad, and his granddad said, "The sad fact, Nelson, is that people live longer than dogs. So when you've lived a long life as I have, you've had to say goodbye to a lot of beloved dogs." And I'm sure some of you listeners have had to say goodbye to your beloved dogs. And Nelson says, "I know why dogs don't live as long. It's because people live long so they can learn how to be good. But dogs already know how to be good, so they don't have to live as long." There you are. Imagine if you decided to live your life as a dog. I've previously talked about the spiritual enlightenment of a dog, D-O-G being an anagram of G-O-D. Well, that's about it for this week. My time is up. Think about how your decision making can make a big difference to your life. I'm sure that if you improve your decision making, your life will improve. I hope I've provoked you to ask better questions of yourself. I hope the answers that you give yourself provoke you with new insights, with new awareness. I again invite you to visit our websites, covest.com, charlescovest.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, to this podcast. And if you're enjoying this show, please share it with your family, with your friends, and with your colleagues. Until next week, I urge you to decide to focus on what is wonderful in your life. There's plenty of shit happening in life, but when you focus on what's wonderful in your life, the rejuvenation that happens when you don't let the shit consume you, you can learn to enjoy whatever's happening to you because you are focusing on wonderful parts of life. Your feelings are a function of where you put your focus. And all of us have stuff happening that is not exciting. That's why your awareness about what you focus on is such a crucial element to this amazing life that you are living, that I am living, that we're all living together on this planet, on our spaceship Earth. Have a good week. I look forward to being with you next week. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for listening. Bye.